First of all, unfortunately, we have to talk about the passing of Astrid Kircher, who was a good friend of the Beatles during their Hamburg days, known for her amazing photography, taking lots of great and now considered iconic photos of the group. Tom is showing you right there. Among the most famous was of the five Beatles, John, Paul, George, Stu, and Pete, at a fairgrounds in front of an open truck. And I believe Mark Lewison was quoted as saying it's the most famous picture of the Beatles when they weren't famous. So aptly put right there. On meeting the Beatles, Astrid is quoted as saying, "They were all so young, and I was so different. I was a few years older. I had my own flat, my own car, my own career. They hadn't met anyone like me before. In some ways, I was more like a mother figure." That's a quote from her. She and Klaus Vormann and Jürgen Vollmer, all artists who lived the bohemian lifestyle, were among their closest friends during their time in Hamburg. Astrid is credited for giving the Beatles their haircut, although you hear very conflicting stories about that. How much in detail do you want to go into here? You hear a lot of different stories about how the Beatles got their haircut, but from what I've heard, it was a haircut that French students were adopting at the time, and apparently German students were as well. Jürgen Vollmer, who was in France, got the Beatle haircut. Astrid gave the haircut to Stu, and then George took the haircut, and then later on, John and Paul got it from Jürgen when they traveled to Paris the following year. This was October of '61. So she didn't invent the haircut.
No.
But, she's credited for starting it with the Beatles. And then I've also heard, and this is based on what Mark Lewison has said, that she gave Stu the haircut based on her own haircut, which was already, her hair was forward. It was brushed forward. So she was copying that. I've also heard stories about how the French might have gotten it from the Marlon Brando film, where the Romans had their haircut that way.
Julius Caesar. Thank you, Tom.
So all these different stories about the haircut, but still Astrid was there at a key pivotal moment when it all started, and she gave it to Stu, then to George, then John and Paul got it from Jürgen. Okay, also, we know Pete Best also never got the Beatle haircut. You hear different stories about that, whether he didn't want to be accommodating. I've also heard that his hair was kind of curly, so it didn't really work as well. I know when I interviewed Pete, and Pete has told this to several people, he said that if the Beatles had asked him, he would have gotten it. But
you
he was the only one. He was the only one that didn't take to the haircut.
Yeah.
So anyway, Astrid originally dated Klaus Vormann, and when Stu arrived, she immediately fell in love with him. Stu chose to leave the Beatles to have a life with Astrid and to pursue his career as an artist and to go to the Hamburg College of Art. They were, in fact, engaged to be married, but Stu died before that ever happened of a brain hemorrhage in April of 1962. Astrid rejoined the Beatles in 1964. She was actually a set photographer on the set of A Hard Day's Night.
Oh.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
And she actually did marry in 1967